So recently, the penultimate episode of the Whittaker era of the show aired, being Legends of the Sea Devils, and for the most part I thought it was pretty bad. And I got to a point in the episode where I was just waiting for a trailer for the Centenary. I didn't hate the episode, I just thought that it was very boring and a standard episode of Doctor Who. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm actually here to talk about the upcoming and as yet unnamed Centenary Special and final episode for the 13th Doctor. So if you have seen the coming soon trailer for the episode, then something you may have already picked up on is that the cast of the episode is going to be pretty big, as just in the trailer we know the following characters are going to be in it. Obviously the current TARDIS team, being the Doctor, Yaz and Dan. We also have Graham returning. We knew this because Bradley Walsh was seen in Cardiff while the episode was being filmed. And we also have a set photo of Bradley Walsh and John Bishop together, so I think it's safe to say that he will actually be in the episode. Next we have the Master, which we already guessed he would appear judging by what Time said to the Doctor at the end of the Vanquishers. Strangely, we have Ashad, and for those of you who don't remember, he was the villain for the final 3 episodes of Series 12. He first appeared in The Haunting of Villa Diodati, and the last time we saw him he was actually shrunk by the Master, so how he's coming back I'm not entirely sure. Another random pick is Vinder. I don't quite know why he's coming back, as I thought his story was wrapped up at the end of Flux when he was reunited with Belle, but somehow he's coming back. We also have Kate Stewart returning, and like the Master, this was pretty obvious as we had seen leaked photos of the unit logo even before we knew it was returning in Flux. Lastly, we have the 2 big ones, and that is the return of the classic Who companions Tegan and Ace. So far that is 9 characters that we know are returning. These are just the characters that are confirmed for the episode and does not include those characters who aren't announced yet. With some of the previously announced characters, they have strong ties to other characters in the show, and it wouldn't make too much sense if the announced characters returned without the characters that are strongly linked to them. The first character I think will likely return is Diane, as she reappeared at the end of Legends of the Sea Devils, and hers and Dan's relationship seems like something that the show could expand on. Depending on how stacked the episode is depends on how much focus and development Diane and Dan will get, but I strongly believe that before the episode ends, Dan and Diane will be a couple in one form or another. Keeping with the relationship between 2 characters, we have Belle, and as she's married to Vinder, it would seem a bit odd if he was returning and not Belle. Although her return is 50-50, as the last time we saw her she was pregnant, and we don't know how much time has passed since the Vanquishers to Legend of the Sea Devils, so her not being there could be explained as she had her baby and didn't want to leave it. And if that is the case, then why would Vinder leave his baby as well? A notable omission from the episode is Ryan. Like I mentioned earlier, we know that Graham is coming back, and to be honest it was kind of obvious that he would, but when it comes to Ryan things get a bit difficult. While filming for the episode was happening, we didn't see Tosin Cole in Cardiff at all, as at the time he was filming a new TV show in America, and it would have seemed pretty hard for him to stop filming, fly to Cardiff just to presumably film a few scenes and then fly back to America. If Ryan does appear in the episode, I think that it will be either a pre-recorded video or a voice call. They could even bring it full circle and have Ryan make a YouTube video, but that seems really unlikely. What I could see happening is that they just mention Ryan a few times during the episode just to give an update to viewers on where he's been and what he's been doing since we last saw him. And if we're talking about past companions returning, then we have to talk about Nyssa, who I'm pretty sure was confirmed to be married to Tegan in Farewell Sarah Jane, but whether Nyssa actually returns is anyone's guess. These next 2 characters are ones that don't have the highest likelihood of returning. One of these characters I would like to see more than the other, and both of them are linked with Kate Stewart. These 2 characters are Osgood and Claire Brown. Out of these 2 characters, I would like Osgood to return more, as in my opinion she's the better character and she is more liked across the fandom from what I have seen. Also, she was mentioned in Survivors of the Flux, which could mean nothing, but if in this episode the unit is being rebuilt, then it would be odd if Osgood wasn't there to help rebuild it. Secondly, we have Claire Brown, who was last seen with Kate at the end of the Vanquishers, and if Chibnall is going to be bringing back everyone from his era, then why wouldn't he bring Claire back too? Hell, he even brought Carl back from when he fell to Earth, so bringing Claire back doesn't seem like that big of a stretch. I'm not entirely sure what Claire's story would be in the episode, but maybe she could be there to help rebuild unit with Osgood and Kate. Do I think all these characters will return for the Centenary? God no, and neither would I want them to, as already there are too many characters in this story, and adding even more will be bloating the episode more than what I think it already will be. If I had to guess on what characters are actually going to return, that would be Diane and maybe Osgood. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the return of former companions Tegan Uranka and Dorothy McShane. Unlike most people, seeing them return, albeit great to see, didn't melt my brain like I think it did for other Doctor Who fans, as I haven't watched much Classic Who, so I'm quite unfamiliar with them as characters. The only Classic Who I have watched is An Unearthly Child, The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, and the TV movie. Out of all these episodes, only one story features a former companion that is returning in this episode, and that is the greatest show in the galaxy. And when I watched it a few years ago, I didn't really focus on Ace, which was entirely my fault. If anyone has any recommendations for not just these two characters, but Classic Who as a whole, it will be much appreciated. The greatest show in the galaxy isn't the only thing I've seen Ace in, as I've also heard her in a few Big Finish stories. Now, there is actually one part about Ace returning that could cause issues, and that is when Ace said that she hadn't heard from the Doctor in 30 years. And on the surface, if you look at the show, then yes, she hasn't, but if you look at some of the expanded media, then things become a bit more complicated. Back in February of 2020, a book was released called At Childhood's End, that was written by Ace's actress, Sophie Aldred. And spoilers if you haven't read it, even though it's shown on the cover of the book and on the blurb on the back, but in it, Ace and the 13th Doctor meet after nearly 30 years. Back when the book was released, we had no idea that Chibnall was going to be bringing Ace back, so for those of us who read it, we were just pleased to see an old companion return in some form. Fast forward to now when it is confirmed that Ace is returning, and that has sparked a question when I first saw the trailer. And that was, so is the book not canon? If the answer is yes, then that brings up a load more questions. The one I'll be most interested in is why. It's not like Ace would forget meeting the Doctor, but even if she did, they would have to retcon it. Not much of the narrative was given to us from the 30 seconds we saw the episode, so there's not much to go on. But what we do know is that Chibnall has quite a few plot threads from his era that need to be wrapped up before the episode ends. Looking back at his previous series finales, it doesn't fill me with much hope that he will be able to wrap up all of his storylines from his era in a nice bow and in a way that will satisfy everyone who watches the episode, as in my opinion he is trying to tackle too much in one episode. To stop this video from going on any longer than it needs to be, I'm going to be going over the 3 main things that need to be done well in order for this episode to not be an entire waste of time. Let's start off with the biggest plot thread of his era, and that is of course the Timeless Child. Throughout Flux, I generally thought that by the end of the series we would have more answers to the Timeless Child, and how wrong I was. When the series started with the Doctor tracking down Carvanista for information on the Division, I thought okay, this is going to be the Doctor's main focus for the series, and it was in a sense, but by the end of the series, what new information did the Doctor actually have? Not much. She knew that the flux was made because of her, and the memories of her past lives pre-Hartnell were stored in a fob watch. But even when she opened the fob watch, she didn't get those memories back like she should have, and how has been shown in the show before. Instead, all she did was show the Doctor a random house that people were speculating to be Lungbarrow. Whether it will actually be revealed to be Lungbarrow is anyone's guess. It's not like Chibnall has done this before, where he's created an entirely new location when he could have just reused one that's basically the same thing and already exists in the show. Speaking of the fob watch, the last scene with the Doctor in the TARDIS with the Doctor putting the fob watch in the heart of the TARDIS is so sequel baity. The entire purpose of the scene was to hint at Phasmin being a possibility and to go please watch the Regeneration episode. What the Doctor should have done is just turned to the camera and said, yeah, this won't be addressed or even brought up in the next 2 episodes. If you come back for my last episode, it will be revealed. Promise. But let's give Chibnall the benefit of the doubt and say he actually writes a decent conclusion to the arc. What are the ways that he could wrap the arc up? I have 2 ideas. They are both quite service level and could be expanded on, but for the sake of time I'll go over them quite briefly. The first one is that the Doctor opens the fob watch and gets her memories back. But after witnessing and remembering her past lives, she decides that she will not be defined by who she was in the past. She wants to be defined by who she is now. Yes, I know that is really cliche, but this is Chibnall we're talking about. Most of the stories he writes are cliche. The second idea is that she never opens the fob watch and leaves it in the TARDIS to be forgotten to time. Whatever route Chibnall takes, I know that he will end up upsetting some fans to some extent, so it's a lose-lose situation whatever way the storyline is wrapped up. Another big thing in the Chibnall era that needs to be wrapped up in some form is the Fugitive Doctor. For most of her appearances in the show, she has been a side character to 13, which makes sense considering that 13 is the quote-unquote main Doctor. But if they do intend on answering the question of where she fits into the timeline, then maybe for this episode it might be worth making the Fugitive Doctor a main character for the episode. I highly doubt that this will be the case, as the episode already has too many characters in it to begin with, so it is unclear if there is even space for the Fugitive Doctor to get a satisfying conclusion in this episode. While I was writing this video, it was revealed that the Fugitive Doctor will be getting her own Big Finish box sets that will take place directly after the events of Fugitive of the Judoon. So I think it's safe to say that if we don't get all the answers we want from the Centenary, then Big Finish will be there to answer some of the lingering questions that fans have. Not only is the Fugitive Doctor getting her own Big Finish box sets, but she's also getting her own comic series called Doctor Who Origins, and it will focus on the very early days of the Doctor. And the first issue's description mentions that the Doctor will be on an assignment from the Division, so hopefully we will get more answers about them as well. The last big thing that Chibnall needs to tackle is the Regeneration itself. Unlike previous showrunners, this is Chibnall's first Regeneration, so we don't have any other ones we can compare it to. Yes, we could compare it to one of New Who's previous Regenerations, but as they were done by different writers, it would seem a bit unfair. There is one big thing that we know about the Regeneration itself, and that is that it will not take place in the TARDIS itself, which is a change that I'm actually all for. As for where the actual regeneration could happen is anyone's guess. I've seen some people suggest that she will regenerate on the hill where Ryan was learning to ride his bike in Series 11, and that could be a cool way and an interesting place to do it, as it would bring her era full circle in a sense. There have been some reports that the Doctor will drown and that is what causes her to regenerate, and if that is the case, then in my opinion that would be quite an unceremonious way to go. Visually it would be great, as the 13th Doctor would submerge into the water and then the 14th Doctor would emerge, but that is if we actually see the 14th Doctor in the episode at all, as they could do an open-ended regeneration where we start to see the regeneration start but then it fades to black. Something I chose not to mention when I was talking about the returning characters is there was a photo that showed David Bradley, Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy in a hotel in Cardiff back when the episode was being filmed. When they were asked what they were doing there, they said they were filming a documentary, but it does seem rather suspicious that they were there nonetheless. If they do actually end up appearing in the episode, then it could be to help the 13th Doctor with regenerating. Maybe they will convince the Doctor that their past does not define them and it's who they are in the present that matters, or some rubbish like that. Those were just the main things I wanted to see / be answered by the episode, and that doesn't even start to scratch the surface of some of the other questions that need to be answered and most likely won't. So in conclusion, I strongly believe that the Centenary Special will be a bloated mess from start to finish. I think that from what we've seen already, there are just too many characters and plot threads that need to be wrapped up for just one episode, even one that is feature length. If the past tribunal finales are anything to go by, then I think my hunch will be proven right, although I'm fully prepared to be proven wrong when the episode airs.